Today, I'm going to give you 10 tips that I've learned as a game developer after 6 months of working. Now before we start, let me just add that you shouldn't take these things as fact. This is just my personal preference, and to find your best workflow all comes down to experience and what feels right for you. So, let's get started. Tip number 1, in my opinion, the most important tip is to have fun while doing it. Many people, including me, have the misconception that game development is a nice stroll in the park without any bumps in the middle of the road. Many people, including me, thought that game development wouldn't be that challenging. Well, it turns out actually making a game is extremely challenging, frustrating, tedious, sometimes monotonous, and worst of all, at some points you're gonna feel like you're not even gonna learn anything. The first few days are exciting, filled with adrenaline, ready to make a brand new game and start a career that you believe you will love. Unfortunately, it really isn't like that at all. However, if you are the few that persevere through the problems and work your butt off to make that masterpiece, you'll find the process can get really fun, exciting, satisfying, rewarding, creating, and beautiful. It all starts with having fun. Having fun brings you motivation, which will make a better game, which will help you in this industry, which will help you market and advertise, which will make you learn more and more and more, which will ultimately make this world a better place. Tip number 2, use a game engine. Before I started using Unity, I used an IDE called undertake, which is for Java. Trying to make a game with all the visuals and logic and fine-tuning and all of that, while not impossible without a game engine, at least in my experience, will take you about 12 billion more years. Using a game engine is just so much faster and easier. Now, the game engine I would recommend for beginners is Unity, since it had such a big community, no pun intended, with a lot of tutorials. But any game engine will be completely fine, like Godot or Unreal, or as long as you know the fundamentals of it, you're Gucci. Number 3, start small. Let's be honest, it'd be really nice to start with a game that brings a unique concept, everyone loves it, you get $100,000, now you can live in a condo and you can buy a Tesla. I mean, that would be nice, but you don't actually know how to make a game yet. Now, the best way to learn how to make games, or really anything in life, is by experience, and actually trying it out for yourself. Crazy, right? Okay, seriously though, probably the biggest obstacle in your way for beginner game developers like you is actually not finishing your game at all. Since many people think that game dev is not that hard, everybody finishes the games they make. Everybody can try, but the minority don't finish. That's why if you want to ensure you finish a project and learn valuable lessons in doing so, you have to start small. My first game was literally a cube. Going forward, you can move left and right, you can jump, and you had to avoid pre-made obstacles. One level, and to top it all off, there was a state-of-the-art GG sign at the end. Small and ridiculously simple, but I'm still proud of it to this day, and learned a lot from it. Tip number 4, prototype. Me and my friend had an idea for a game where there's a blindfolded robber constantly running forward, and you had to move the environment around him so you wouldn't get caught. It sounded like a good idea in my head, so me and my friend got working. The thing was, we didn't prototype any ideas whatsoever. When me and my friend were done with the first level, which didn't take that long, not only was I exhausted, I wasn't having fun. Prototyping an idea is a critical part of making a game, since your whole game will revolve around this concept. Sure, it takes more time, and you aren't building the actual game, but in hindsight, it actually makes development faster, via more motivation, so long as the idea you found was fun to build. I prototyped some ideas for a new game I'm working on right now. And let's say the core mechanic of the game changed slightly to a concept I like more. I even changed the game from 2D to 3D, which I found was more fun. So prototype your ideas. Tip 5, you can't do everything by yourself. Another misconception people have when they view game developers is that they do everything by themselves, from scratch. They think game devs are so smart that they should know how to do everything by themselves, like art, modeling, building levels, making music, all of that. Well, let me tell you, this is as far from the truth as you may get. Especially as a beginner, you should watch tutorials on YouTube or the internet to really know the basics of the environment you may be working on, and whatever your strength is as a game developer, whether that be coding, art, music, or anything else. Don't feel guilty about needing help. It's just a way to learn. This leads to tip number 6, focus on your strength. While it is important to know the basics of the important skills in the process of making a game, the one thing you should really try to improve is your strength. This will help improve you as a whole in a variety of reasons. The first one being that you'll learn much faster for a longer amount of time. You have a particular strength for a reason, whether that maybe you absolutely love this industry, like music, art, modeling, or any of the other ones that I mentioned above, or you just learn it really fast, which also helps you create a better game. Hence, your big project will be focused on what you do best. However, remember to start small and focus on some of your weaknesses in those small little projects, since that will help improve the aspects of your masterpiece you don't like. Tip number 7, never expect to get things right on the first try. Now, personally, I'm a really impatient guy and absolutely loathed when I had an error when I was a complete beginner. It was very discouraging, and I wondered if I was the only one having this problem, or if I was dumb, which, okay, let's not answer that. Well, when you make a mistake, you're not alone. You're never alone. Nobody ever gets things right on the first try 100% of the time. Still don't believe me? Go to a Brackeys tutorial, and by the way, if you don't know, Brackeys is a super big game dev channel, which partly focuses on tutorials, and scroll down to the comments. You will see that many people share these struggles, and spend hours trying to figure out their mistake, without realizing that they missed a letter, or spelled a function wrong. It's very annoying and exhausting at first, but if you persevere through it, and accept the fact that you will make more mistakes than you count, you will succeed. Tip number 8, join game jams. This tip also kind of goes with tip number 3 with the intention of starting small. Now I'll tell you the story of my first game jam. I was debating with whether I should join this quarantine game jam that was going to happen in 2 days. I believe one of the reasons why people join these events is that they'll fail. They believe they'll fail. But here's the thing, let's be honest, especially in your first game jam, nobody will play your game. The sole purpose of the game jam is to get better at your game development skills. If you do horribly, so what? In fact, you'll actually gain something from the jam, no matter how badly you may do. One important thing I learned from the quarantine jam is time management, and that you should really focus on getting the important core mechanics of your game done first, before you start working on art. That's what I learned. If you want to participate in the game jam, the best place in my opinion to go is itch.io, link in the description, and go to the jams tab in the top left corner. You can also search for game jams in Google, like the Ludum Dare game jam. Tip number 9, don't let emotions overtake you. Imagine this, you're about to start your very first big project. Like most of us, after we've learned the basics, we want to speed through it, get as much done as possible, without a proper plan, but with an idea you came up with overnight. It's fun at first. After a couple days though, your motivation and adrenaline runs out, and you realize your mistake, forgetting to plan. Your emotions took over the best of you. Because of that, you rushed in headfirst, which is a big mistake. I'll be honest, as a beginner, starting to create a proper game, I wanted to rush through it. Eventually though, I realized that you have to be patient when it comes to creating your masterpiece. You have to plan, and prototype, and pitch your ideas to others to ensure your game will not only be fun for other people, but fun for you to create. Remember, this isn't a sprint. This is a marathon. This leads us into my final point, which is tip number 10. Your game is a lot bigger than you think. At first, you may be tempted to think that once you got this core mechanic down in your game, you're basically finished. I fell into this trap, spending all my energy on my unique concepts. But then I realized I needed menu screens, actual art, a story, and all these things I didn't think about. By the time I realized this, it was already too late to implement them, since I was just too tired and wanted to get this game finished up. That idea can grow into a game bigger than anybody could ever imagine, like Minecraft. You have to think of your masterpiece as a long-term project if you want this to happen. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope you got away with a little bit more knowledge than at the start of this video. What are some game dev tips you think are important? Leave a response in the comment section down below. As always, see ya next time. Bye!